Welcome to the August edition of 71 Magazine. I'm your host, John Bryenton, and we'd like to thank OMU for underwriting this segment. In the studio with me today is Sonya Dixon, who is the Public Relations and Communications Manager with OMU. Welcome to the show, Sonya. It's been a long time since I've interviewed you.
I know, it has been a while.
Well, Jaime's out right now. She'll be back the next segment,
All right.
but she shunned you, so
we'll show her how it's done.
We'll show her how it's done once again. Okay, today we're going to be talking about the water main break that OMU and Owensboro experienced this past month. So if you could just give our viewers kind of a general overview of what really happened the morning of July 9th.
July 9th. We'll all know where we were on the morning of July 9th, aren't we? Early that morning, sometime before 4:30 that morning, we noticed pressure dropping in our system, and that led us to believe that we had a main break. Also started seeing the water starting to flood 4th Street. So not only did we know about it due to our gauges and our measurement tools, but also because we could see it. So crews were immediately dispatched. Unfortunately, at that time, we lost enough water to lose pressure throughout our system. And when I say our system, that means all of our other lines throughout the system. And then also keep in mind that we serve the citizens of Owensboro, but we sell water to 3 wholesale water districts, the Southeast, the East, and the West districts. So the entire county, in essence, and some fringe areas lost pressure. When that happened, some customers lost pressure altogether, lost water altogether. Some were able to have some minimal pressure and some water in some areas because we were able to keep our cabin plant up and running, because the break, and I should have been clear about this, occurred in front of Plant A. Everybody always wants to know where Plant A is. That's next to Davis County Middle School. Okay. You'll see the old part of the power plant that was shut down in the 50s and 60s. At one end of it, we have our filter buildings and those sorts of things. And then behind it, we have other clarifiers and that sort of thing. So that is where Plant A is located. And that's where we had, in that same general areas where we had the main break in '94 and also in 2017.
Right. Well, okay, now, the one thing that I've wondered about this is because, you know, if something like this would happen in my world, it would become like a bunch of mice running around, mass confusion. So is there sort of like a master plan that when something like this happens, you all know what to do?
We do have an emergency plan, and it's an operational guide that gets us through general type disasters. Obviously it doesn't cover every single, do we have this part, do we have that, but everybody has a role and everybody knows what they're doing. You know, the minute that we knew that the water began flooding and we knew that we had lost pressure in the system, both production and also our delivery, our line guys were immediately dispatched and put out there. Everybody knew what to start doing. They knew what equipment they needed. They started getting in there. Also, these guys deal with breaks and deal with water on a daily basis, not obviously of this magnitude. So they have the skills and the training and the knowledge that can get them through that. So it is an all hands on deck. For instance, during this event, we had to move a pole that had lines on it because it was in the area. So we had an electric crew come out and help us move that utility pole. Our customer service staff obviously manned the lines. When it came to the flushing of the system, our electric crews have been trained on how to open up the hydrants and that kind of thing, as is the Owensboro Fire Department. So everybody has a role in this, and it is literally hands on deck.
Well,
all hands on deck.
Yeah, it was, to me it's fascinating just to see everything. And I know that you mentioned before it can look like mass chaos, but there's a lot of structure involved in it. There really is. There is.
You know, we have a lot of crews on site that are at the ready to do certain things. We are rotating crews through every 16 hours, so there are a lot of people in and out of there. But this is where we really rely on the expertise and the dedication of our employees, and boy did they shine.
Yeah. Well, now I know, you know, we've had a couple recent incidents of water losses. One, I believe, was in October of 2017. And the reason I remember that is because I happened to be doing some training down at your training facility.
That's right.
And we were evacuated from that as the parking lot started filling up with water. But besides that, what was the difference between that time and this July? Because if I remember correctly, the last time we had water.
You did have water. That had to do with where the break occurred and the magnitude. This time we actually had two lines that were broken. One was a 20-inch and one was a 24-inch. One happened to be, I'm calling it vintage 1904. So when it broke, it undermined a newer valve or a newer line, and so both of those broke, and we lost pressure so quickly. So that had a lot to do with that. And then we had to work to shut Plan A down and get cabin up, and there were a number of factors. But you know, Plan A is an aging plant, and we've been talking about it for some time, and the fact that we are starting to see settlement in the filter building, which is, as you can imagine, a heavier portion because it does filter water and it has all the medium that we need to do that. We've been noticing that for some time.
That's the one that's got the crack in it, right? That they've noticed.
It does, yeah. That we're doing a lot of monitoring of it. So you know, it just the magnitude of this one, the speed at which the water left the system, lots of those things came into play.
And this is another question that it's, do you want to, because I know some of these pipes are old, let's face it. I mean, they've been in the ground, like you said, since the early 1900s. Do you systematically go around and change these old pipes, or is there a process?
Well, we do have a main replacement program, and there are lots of different size mains. What we're talking about are very large mains that actually feed and come from our treatment facilities. As you know, we have Plant A and we have the Cabin plant, which is just up the road. You know, we have mains throughout our system, you know, that run down the middle of your street currently, and we're always replacing those. These are a little bit different. It's aging infrastructure that is associated with the production facilities. But you know, we do have a plan in place to retire that plant and then expand the capacity at our Cabin treatment facility. So, and then we've also done some things in that area, like some valving that allows us to isolate that area. As a matter of fact, we took advantage of this break, trying to turn lemons into lemonade, as you would. We added some additional valving so that we could isolate that area. The problem with replacing this type of equipment and a treatment facility is cost. OMU is not alone. This is a nationwide problem. Louisville has battled with that. Bowling Green is preparing to make some major infrastructure changes in their area. You've heard about some of the struggles that Evansville's had, Los Angeles. A lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the piping, and even the treatment facilities were put in the early 1900s because that's when the technology and the know-how was available. So you're seeing a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of water companies and communities are in the same boat we are.
Well, you know, that even holds true for like bridges, because you hear that all over the United States. We have this population of aging bridges that need to be repaired, and it's so expensive, you know, to do it. So a lot of states are not prepared financially, you know, for that. Now, you referenced before that you have different areas of the county throughout, you know, your communication. You always, you know, mention like the South and the East and
the West.
I'm going to ask you a silly question. I'm in the East District. Why I did not lose any pressure. I didn't drink my water, but I had plenty of water, I had plenty of pressure. Why is that?
We were able to keep our Cabin plant up and running. That plant, given the current setup, is not able to keep, doesn't have enough capacity to get to everyone, doesn't have enough water to keep the entire system full. So some areas did have some water. You happen to be one of the lucky ones. I'm sure your house was a popular spot. So, you know, so we did have some areas because we were feeding from that Cabin plant, and you happen to live in an area that's near that.
So I know that now I can make the assumption that where I live is fed by the Calvin plant.
It just all depends at different times, but in this instance, yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the boil water order or notice or whatever that called. You know, I've heard a lot of people try to put different spins on it. What is it actually?
You know, when we have, and this you can be on a small scale if we're in your neighborhood working, but let's talk about it in the scale that we're most familiar with right now, which was the most recent break. When you have a loss in pressure in your entire system and you have a break of that magnitude, there is an opportunity, there is a potential that you could have some contamination in the water. It's not that we found anything, it's not that we suspected anything, but out of the utmost caution and the care for our community, because healthy water, healthy, safe water is you know, so crucial to us and so critical to how we function in our daily lives, as we well know now, right? We're reminded of that. So that was issued in conjunction with the State Division of Water. And what that does is it requires you to boil water that you plan to use for consumption. Okay. And let's be really clear about that. That's only for consumption.
Right.
That is not for you to take a shower. Not to flush your commode or anything like that. It's strictly if you're going to drink it or if you're going to use it for food preparation. Okay. So those are the only two times and it's also that not that anything's suspected, but we want to be very clear and we want to be careful.
Well, see, and my wife got on me because I did not use bottled water when I brushed my teeth, but I didn't swallow the water. So I'm sticking by my plan there, like you said. I didn't consume that water, okay? Yeah. Hey, listen, I believe this incident, in my opinion, I think for what the incident was, as big as it was taken care of very quickly. What kind of time frame was it really between the point of when we lost water to when everybody had it again?
We lost water. We were able to, very early that morning before most people were out of bed, we were able to restore that fairly quickly, if you recall, but we had to wait until the boil water order could be lifted, and that requires a series of testing and the flushing. So for us, internally, it was a week-long process, but our customers and those that are served by the water districts, it was much earlier in the week, so it was a couple of days. I don't have an exact timeline, but we had we did have a section of customers, about 300 across from Plant A, that were isolated because they were in that isolation zone. So but we were very proud. This is the last thing we ever want to happen. It is absolutely for anyone to be without one of our services, and we pride ourselves on reliability. So when something like this does happen, we want to restore as safely and as soon as possible. Right. And I feel that we were able to achieve that goal.
I do, and listen, people, think of the people in Flint, Michigan. I mean, we had a taste of what they've been experiencing. So I think, and sometimes what this does, Sonya, I think it makes us appreciate water a whole lot more because when you don't have it, then you understand the inconveniences that
well, and we're so fortunate in that in Flint, Michigan, they have water. It's just not safe water.
Right.
Here we have an ample supply of water. I know that we did have the break and that we were without water, but it's a safe supply. So once it's restored and once that we've lifted the orders, you know that it's okay to go and turn that tap on. Right. So just the comfort of knowing that and knowing that it's something that we can fix. I'm not sure about the dollars and what has to happen in Flint to actually fix that problem.
That's right. Well, as the communications manager for OMU, if I remember correctly, you had to use, or you do use, a variety of methods of communication. I want to hear all these different methods of communication that you used on
Well, first of all, a shout out to local media for just being fantastic about being available to us and helping us get it on, TV and in the newspaper and online and on the radio. I certainly appreciate everyone. But at my disposal, I had lots of other channels, and it was really great. We used Facebook a lot. As a matter of fact, our followers increased amazingly. I was very pleased because we were it was very easy for us to keep updates on there. We did the same with Twitter, and then we also used our website. Another tool that I felt was particularly effective because people subscribed to it. They didn't have to get online and go to Facebook or go to their Twitter app. Was our texting option, and a lot of customers, I think that was very helpful because we did try to post as much information as we could. It was a quick channel. It was something that you could copy and share. It was something you could forward to friends and family.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, a special shout out goes to everyone at OMU.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that you can echo this. It was all hands on deck, and I'm sure there were people that were working around the clock. As we were sleeping, they were out there working. So really a special shout out to all those folks, and not just the water guys, because everybody
did. That is when you talk about a team atmosphere and a family atmosphere, everybody wants to support what's going on and wants to do what they can do and contribute in any way they can. The people that were working on the cruise, 16 hours, a lot of the time they were working in water while they were trying to pump out water from the large hull. If anybody was in that area, they saw the very large hull. Yeah. They were in confined spaces doing work, and the fact that they were also able to work safely I think is certainly something that we're very proud of.
Yeah. Well, Sonya, thanks for joining me today. But
Thank you.
how can people get additional information if they'd like to?
As always, we're a local company, 270-926-3200. Also, certainly visit us at omu.org, and I hope you'll follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and maybe sign up for our texting option by visiting the website.
Excellent. Thanks again,
Thank
Sonya,
you
for joining us. And thanks again to OMU for underwriting this segment. Stay tuned. Up next, Jamie's going to be back, and she's going to be with Owen from Puzzle Pieces. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome back to our segment of 71 Magazine. I'm happy to have with me from Puzzle Pieces, founder and executive director Amanda Owen. Hello, Amanda.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm really, really excited to have you. A lot of people already know this, but I have a son with autism. He was actually on the show in January.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he killed it. I have to say, he did a great job. But we're here to talk today about Puzzle Pieces. And before we get into some of the exciting things that are happening, can you tell us a little bit of history about your organization?
Yes, so we are a 501c3, and we were established almost 6 years ago. So September of 2012 is when we opened our first store, and we started serving individuals with developmental disabilities, a lot of similar to autism. Most of our population, our percent, is mainly autism. So we started off with 32 clients, and meeting their social needs, making them be as independent as possible with the one-on-one support. And now we've grown to now serving 128 individuals in our community.
Wow, and you all have really expanded in 6 years.
Yeah.
You have. And I know that you also have opened residential facilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we like to say just residential homes,
Okay.
Only because
Facility,
you're right.
yeah.
Well, you know.
Yes.
So what we have done is we've opened 2 houses. So a lot of people, you wouldn't even know what house it would be. It's just on your typical street, and we staff it 24/7. That's the only difference versus your home versus my home. Is there's a staff there to help them make sure their health, safety, and welfare is intact, and make them as independent as possible there as well. But right now we have what we call to be 3 boys. They're all roommates. They all chose each other to be roommates. And then we have 3 girls, so we have 2 houses. In the last 2 years, well, the last year actually, we've opened 2 and have been able to staff that, and it's been amazing just to see them flourish and be active and, you know, go on trips, and they just love it.
Yes, well, and too, I think sometimes for those caregivers or parents, we want just what we want for any other child. And so I hear that, and I think of all the possibilities for my son, because he absolutely could live in an independent living community, and that is giving him the opportunity to do. Any of them have any jobs or hobbies that they like to do?
Actually, a lot of our clients that we currently serve, as we go into branch out to other services for supportive employment and things coming in the near future, 5 of our clients actually hold full-time jobs. So that's the, you know, I guess the biggest myth amongst Puzzle Pieces is that we're a facility, they all come to us every day and we serve them every day, all day long. And for some that works great, and for others we're very person-centered. So we have some that, we have 3 or 4 clients that live actually on their own, in their own apartment, and we just go in and help them make sure that they have groceries and help them money budget and things like that. One, he flies and sees his family in Michigan, so we take him to the airport, make sure he gets on the plane, he flies independently. So I think that there's a huge myth in referencing to, and I think our community is getting better, but I love to be able to talk about all the things that you don't get to see or that you don't know us for.
And recently, you all have really been in the community with your name, your face, because you could not help those 128 individuals and staff your facility without some community support. So tell us what's been going on to help make these things come to fruition.
You know, I feel like we're in a great momentum right now, and it's just all because my staff, not just even myself now, I feel like this staff has really stepped up, and we're just trying to create more of an awareness of, you know, when we're going out to lunch and dinner, that we're able to show and model for the community how that true interaction should be. So that has created, so since everybody sees us, that has created a lot of, you know, positive things and successful for our events. You know, we did the Owensboro lip sync battle in January, and that was huge, and so people are reaching out for that. So we just was nominated and selected as Messenger Inquirer's People's Choice Award and the Platinum for a Nonprofit of the Year. So it's just, I don't know, it's very humbling, but at the same time, I love it more for the clients because, and I think one parent said before when we received the Impact 100 grant 3 years ago, it might have been 4 years now, she was like, you know, this is a home run hit for my son because this is like they matter, and like now the community sees like they deserve this just as much as anybody else. So we have a ton of need in our Owensboro community, and I've learned a lot about that. So this is just something I'm passionate about, and I just love that the community's coming together to see that there's a need, and you know, putting money and support and volunteer hours into doing that.
When you have a passion that comes from a personal experience, do you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because I also think when folks hear that, it drives home the reason why we as a community should support it.
So, you know, there's not been many people I have met in our local community that hasn't had someone that they knew or impacted from their family with autism or a developmental disability. And so for me, whenever I was growing up, that was really unheard of. Like it was hard for me to connect, and I saw my family really struggle because I have a brother who has a rare disability. It's a chromosomal disability. So he was the 11th person in the United States to ever be born with it. And that was, my mom always says, well, that was before the time of Facebook and all of these. So she had like pen pals that she would try to connect with. It was a rare disability, and she felt like all alone. And growing up, I saw her and my dad just manage, and they weren't in survival mode, but they were just managing and doing what they knew to do best. And I was thinking, man, what if after school, what if after my brother was to graduate, there was a place? And so I became a special ed teacher, and I realized that so many other of those families had the same dreams, the same struggles, but also the same victories as my mom and dad did. And so that's really what started the dream of puzzle pieces. And you know, when we first started, it was my dream, but now I think I can step back and say now it's a community's dream to see the impact it has made. And just recently, we have an upcoming event, a banquet that we celebrate. I have 27 staff who have graduated and went on to become nurses, teachers in our local community. And so what an impact that it's not just impacting the lives of our clients, it's impacting way more of a bigger scope than I ever imagined it to be.
Absolutely. And again, when you look at how it's been embraced, going from, well, the need was obviously there when you came in and you were serving the 32 clients, and then it's grown. Do you see, you know, one of the biggest questions that people ask is, are you seeing more disabilities, or do you think diagnosis is more? And I have to be honest, as a mom, I say I have this a theory of radical acceptance. It kind of doesn't matter at this point. It's here.
Right.
And your ability to serve has been, you know, has been amazing, but without this community support and acceptance, it would probably be much more difficult.
Oh, hands down, I agree with you. I think that, are there maybe a little bit more diagnoses before? Maybe, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what was like before. I think there is more of a community acceptance. There is more of a challenge of us to embrace, and I think that so families are coming more to where do I start? Where do I need help? And where before, you know, like my mom used to always say, like, I felt like I was on my own. And so now these families, it takes a village. And not, you know, I always say, and I'm sure you've heard this, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And so, you know, our service is not it for everybody. So it does take a buffet of supports. Just like any of us that are typical developing, we need a buffet. Like, we don't go to the same gym. Like, it would be all streamlined to, like, this is what you have to do in life. They deserve to have an array of different options of what best meets them. And I think that, so more people are being more aware, and families are coming more to the forefront to say, I do need help, or I am it's not something that needs to be hidden anymore like it did, I think, in the past.
Is there an age where services can begin with you all? Is there, what ages is there an age range?
Well, it's changing and evolving. Obviously, we have no age out. So, and that's really important, I think, for the community to understand is it's not like these services or the support has to stop.
Because, yeah.
It's really important. Repetition and routine is really important. And so we have to continue, and they expect us to continue. So supports don't stop. However, we're starting to do a little bit younger. To attend the facility at Puzzle Pieces on our main location, we usually do, our youngest was 7 years old.
Okay.
So, but it's really based on person-centered. If there was a 3-year, like we've been reached out 3 and 4 year olds, if they need us to come into their home to help support, just to give that family a relief, and then maybe have them go in the community or some socialization, we'll work with that. So we're trying to expand, but when you hire, we have 60 employees, so it's just trying to man that and do that where we want to make sure we maintain quality before we just open the doors and onset a ton of quantity.
Well, I want to go back to something really quickly. Years ago, when you were still teaching, you held a sibling workshop, and my daughter attended years ago. She's 15 now, and she attended. And one of the things that she says is, Bo can live with me for the rest of his life. And I feel like she left there with saying something that you had said before. Bo is Bo. I didn't realize, and what you all are doing is you're helping the community to see that Bo is Bo, Drew is Drew, whoever, Matthew's Matthew. You're letting them see that they're not just a diagnosis, but they have a place in this community just like you and I have a place in this community. And as a parent, I can't thank you enough, but as a community member, we want to see everyone succeed. And you're given those individuals that opportunity, but also the families in the community. I think every family, probably at one time, even with social media, has felt like your mom. You sometimes still feel alone, even with.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it is an extension of the family. Like, I've talked to so many families at this point, and I'll spend hours on a phone because I pretend like each client is my brother or my sister, and each parent are my parents. So like sometimes it's really hard to step back, but at the same time, I don't want to ever change that. Like no matter how much we grow, the community has embraced that, but I just want to be able to educate and bring awareness to, it doesn't have to stop with me, and it doesn't have to just be me or our staff. It could be the entire community. And hopefully, when doing SIBS chops and things like that, we've just always said, know me for my ability and not my disability. And it's just they're not identified by their disability. But I think we have to embrace that to understand them, but we don't let that hold them back.
Yes, absolutely. That's what makes them flourish. On a very comical note, because one of my favorite things to do is share funny stories. I think sometimes I can't imagine the stories that you're able to tell, but isn't that sometimes what keeps us going?
Oh, for sure.
After a struggle. My son took Chinese this year. He wanted Japanese, but Apollo High School only offers Chinese. He flourished. His teacher was going back to China, and he, who has had no emotions growing up, has had to learn emotions with the autism. Social impairment has been one of the issues. He's flourished. He told me he drew her a picture of Kirby, who is a character from a video game, and wrote in Chinese, "I will miss you," and gave it to her. And I said, are you really going to miss her? And he said, yes, why would I have drawn the picture? Which let me know the importance of intervention, socialization. Bo used to just repeat, I'd say, I love you. He'd say, I love you. And there was no emotion, no feeling. He went out of his way. And so I look at that, and I look at the possibilities that you're offering through Puzzle Pieces. You have opening horizons of families and individuals that may not have felt any hope when they heard a diagnosis, whatever it was, or a challenge. And so I as a mom, can't thank you enough because of organizations like yours. we have an opportunity to have a relationship.
Well, you just nailed it. Having those opportunities, that's in providing that hope and being okay. Like you spoke everything that like I always talk about. It's like understanding them on their level. And I think so many times we want to judge people, whether disability or not, we want to judge people on how they connect with others. And it's just relationship building. It's going out of your way to understand and